Hello, Ira. Ira. How do you say your name? Ira. 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 That's my guess. Okay. Các bạn nghe anh nói rõ mà đúng không? Anh đang không có bị muted, right? The audio is okay, am I right? Please tell me the audio is okay. Hello, Quang, thấy đau bụng. Hai user rõ rồi, thank you. Nghe ạ, thank you, it's okay, thank you, Joachim. Hello, leaf sheep. Hello Hải cậu, hello Nana. Hồi chiều á, lúc mà anh suy nghĩ ra cái idea cho cái stream này, anh rất là thắc mắc là nếu anh có nên stream hoàn toàn bằng tiếng Anh không? Mọi người nghĩ sao? Good evening, it should be like good night right about now. Hai trần trưởng, hai muốn đạt được IELTS 7.5. Đợi series này chỉ để nghe anh trả lời. Ok, vô luôn anh. Ok, dạ anh. Good night. Có nhiều bạn không thể được, anh cũng nghĩ như vậy á. Hai độc thoại. Ủa có sub ở trên TikTok mình có sub được hả? Anh không biết cái đó. I didn't know that. This stream was sponsored by Aquafina. Okay, I'm kidding. I don't get a sponsor. I am not famous enough. Live của anh là gì? Right somewhere down there. 10 giờ 30 tối thứ hai, thứ tư, thứ sáu. Rồi, làm sao để không bị scale khi nghe câu trả lời anh Khoa? Anh đang bị scale trước cái câu trả lời của em Á Lan. Anh nghĩ là cái việc mình scale trước một câu trả lời là cái chuyện hoàn toàn bình thường. Ok, cho nên đó là you know, it's not easy to overcome. Anh nghĩ là em practice nhiều là được. Ok. Bạn nghĩ nó là anh ơi, hôm nay crush là tránh mặt em rồi. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Ok, anh có luyện nói hàng ngày không? That's a really good question. Actually, I do. Em nốt luyện live của anh luôn đó. That's good. Hope to see you again soon. Alright. Em coi live anh lâu nay mới quyết định mua khóa học listening. Welcome to the YouPass family. Okay. So shall we get started? So, anh có một cái thắc mắc mọi người, hồi nãy các bạn nào mà vào stream sớm á thì anh cũng có hỏi rồi, but anh cũng muốn lấy ý kiến chung của mọi người ha. Mọi người nghĩ sao nếu như mà những cái buổi live speaking này á mình nói tiếng Anh hết các bạn? Okay, what do you guys think about that? Mọi người nghĩ sao? Okay, được. YouPass không có khóa riêng từng kỹ năng. Có em, mình có khóa listening, có khóa reading, có khóa writing task 1, khóa writing task 2. Cái khóa duy nhất mình không có là khóa speaking thôi. Hay da. Chơi luôn anh. Em học được 2 buổi nữa. Dash off a reply. What does that even mean? Ok, trên YouPass có bộ vo không? Theo như anh biết thì chưa có. Tới luôn anh ơi. Ok, wow, áp lực quá mọi người. Áp lực quá, this is so much pressure. Ok, rồi, để anh kêu bạn Khoa biết nói tiếng Anh vào. Ok, give me 1 second. Hello everyone. So today we're not going to be doing any Vietnamese. We're just completely talking in English. All right. So if you type anything in Vietnamese, I'm just going to say, I have no idea what you're saying. Okay. So we shall not speak our native language today. All right. I don't understand Vietnamese, guys. If you keep typing Vietnamese, I'm not going to be able to understand. So type it in English. Okay. Can you speak slowly? I'll try. I'm not able to speak slowly because, listen, I don't often talk to a lot of other people. I mostly just talk to myself. And when you talk to yourself, you don't really need to listen to the words you're saying. You just need to be able to understand what's going on in your mind, you know? But I love Vietnamese so much. Where's your Minecraft weapon? I don't have any Minecraft weapons today. Today I have banana. Okay, bạn Thùy Linh kêu là chậm thôi. Okay, I'll try to speak a bit slower. How's this? I think this speed is a bit better. Are we allowed to join the live stream? What do you mean? You're a part of the live stream. So, okay, too fast, too dangerous. Please create speaking task in YouPass. We will soon enough. Just give us a few more months. All right? Okay, the previous speed is okay. I think this speed is much better for everyone else. So we'll be going a bit slower today. So hi, welcome everyone to the stream. So today we're going to be taking a look at some part 1 questions. Right now I just have one topic, which is about emails, but we'll probably get more in a little bit. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to be talking about a question, obviously. I'm going to ask you what you think about the question. We're going to think of some ideas, and then I'll give you some helpful phrases. So if you have a notebook with you, it'll be better because you can write down what you've learned. All right? So today we're going to be talking about emails, right? Emails, not to be confused with emails, okay? So the first question is, do you think sending emails will be more or less popular in the future? All right, so let's talk about this. So let me know in the chat, have you ever sent an email to anyone you know? What time do you usually go live? 10 p.m., 10:30 actually. I'm practicing listening. Okay, before we talk about it being more or less popular, do you guys often send emails to other people? Let me know. Have you ever sent an email to someone else? No, so less popular. No, to my boss. Yes. Is this speaking forecast? Kind of. It's a question that's been asked recently, so I would say so. Yes, I have. No, more universal. Rarely. I've sent it to my teacher. I send emails every day. Okay, I send emails every day. Okay, so I think unless you're working an office job, right? So if you're doing an office job, then probably you would say sending emails is something that you do every day, right? But for me, I think that in the past year I've sent like one email, and it's just a reply to someone else. So I would say that I rarely ever send an email, right? So I rarely ever send emails. All right, not really. I thought today is writing. I thought so too, but today we're doing speaking. So there you go. All right. So we're doing speaking today. That's something new. Oh, so yeah, I think if you're in university, you also need to send emails to your lecturers, right? Emails to your lecturers. Okay, so fun fact, the word email can actually be both a noun and a verb. So if you do need to paraphrase it, so instead of saying, oh, I need to send emails to my lecturers, you can say like, I often email my lecturers, for example. All right. So anyway, I'm asking you that because judging by what your usual rate of email sending is, I think you have a pretty good answer for this question. So for example, for me, I rarely ever send emails, right? So if I'm answering this question, I'm going to say that it'll become less popular. So instead of saying less popular, there's another word here that you can use. You can say it's going to become less prevalent. All right. And when you're answering these sort of questions, so this is a yes or no question, right? Usually the first thing that you want to do is you want to give a direct answer. All right. So again, if I'm talking a bit too fast, then just let me know. I'll slow down a little bit. But anyway, for a yes or no question, the first thing that you want to do is you want to give a direct answer, because you wouldn't want to answer a question for like 3 or 4 sentences, right? And then the examiner has no idea whether you actually agree or disagree, or whether you think it's going to become more or less popular. So you should always start with a direct answer. So in this case, I'm going to immediately give an answer, and I'm going to say, I think that. And one thing that you should keep in mind is you shouldn't be repeating everything the examiner asks. So for example, you shouldn't be saying, I think that sending emails will become less popular, for example. You should paraphrase, but you don't need to use a synonym. So instead of saying sending emails, you can say something like, I think that doing so, for example. So you don't need to use a synonym, but you also avoid repeating what the examiner says. So that's a bit better. All right. How do you organize the ideas for speaking? you have to answer these questions like 20 different times, and then it just becomes like something that you memorize. All right. So, for example, here you can say, I think that doing so will become less prevalent, for example. Right. And you don't need to repeat in the future. But what you do need to do is you do need to explain why you think so. So you can say, I think that doing so will become less prevalent because, and here's an explanation. Now, for those of you who think that it will become less popular, okay, so we'll talk about it being more popular in a little bit, but I want to hear from the people who think that it'll become less popular. So why do you think so? Why will it become less popular? Okay, give me some reasons. I want to hear from you. Now I understand why you got the Band 9. Yeah, I got Band 9 like 5 times already. It's getting a bit boring. So I think they should make it harder. I'm kidding. Prevalent means popular, basically. Or it means common. AT Med Journey asks, question mark, a bit boring. No, what I'm trying to say is that it's gotten a bit stale for me, so I think that they should have, like, more difficult questions. I'm trolling, by the way. I don't actually think this. Okay, we can use our phone to send emails, but if you're using your phone to send emails, you're still sending emails, right? Social chat, emergence of many social, I think you mean to say social media platforms, right? Prominent is okay, yes. AI systems can help us send emails automatically. Yeah, I think that is a good idea. Development of technology, other social media like Facebook or Instagram. Can I see the question? Sure, it's right there. Unless I'm blocking it? No, I'm not. Okay. How do you practice English, sir? Don't call me sir, you make me feel old. Come on. Right, so I think the main thing here is that there are more options, right? More options, or you should say more alternatives, right? An alternative is something else that works for a specific purpose. So instead of sending emails to communicate with someone, nowadays we have more alternatives. You can just message them on another social media platform, right? So you can say people can use other social media platforms, and instead of saying to contact someone, you can say to get into contact, right? With somebody. And it more or less just means like to get in touch with someone, right? Actually, I'm going to replace that. So yeah, use other social media platforms to get in touch with, let's say, somebody. All right. Yeah, more alternatives to communicate. Yeah, that makes sense. Emails are out of modern. I think you mean out of style, right? How do you transfer passive vocabulary to active vocabulary? You practice more. That's how you do it. We will do reading, but on Friday. Yes, don't call me professor. It makes me feel old, okay? I'm still young. I'm a youngin'. Please don't call me old. Oh, out of fashion. Yeah. Okay, so you can probably add this to your original answer, and you can say something like, I think that doing so will become less prevalent because nowadays, there's nothing wrong with this word, by the way. I've seen many people say that you shouldn't use this word. I think it's fine. You just need to be a bit careful about the pronunciation, because a lot of students will mix this word up. They'll say something like now's a day or now a day, things like that, right? So pay attention to the pronunciation. So it's nowadays. Right, practice that. Nowadays. You say that like 10 times in a row and you get the hang of it. So nowadays, there are more alternatives, such as other social media platforms for people to get in touch with others, right? Okay. So emails, or actually you don't really need to say so because you already gave a direct answer. I also saw another idea where someone said AI would take over this sort of task. So you can also add another idea here, but use a linking device. Something like in addition works. So you can say, in addition, AI has also replaced the manual job of sending emails. So people will, right? And then you can say something like they'll not likely use this, or they'll be less likely to use it. So people will be less likely to use emails as a form of communication in the future. All right, just give another idea here to lengthen your answer. So here we have an answer that's like 58 words. So let me know, how many words do you think a part 1 answer should be? Right? Let me know in the chat, how many words do you think should be in a part 1 answer? Okay, so Hal says 40 to 50, 150. Part 1, my friends. Okay, 3 to 4 sentences. Will you send this file? I will. About 50 words, below 50 words. Okay, so I'm going to tell you. So imagine you're taking the first part of the IELTS test. This part lasts for 4 minutes, right? And in those 4 minutes, usually you have to answer around 9 questions. So if you take this and then you divide it, you get around 20 seconds for each answer, right? How many words do you think you can say in 20 seconds, right? How many words do you think you can say in 20 seconds? I've done a bit of research, and the average speed at which someone talks is around 150 words per minute, right? So if you take this and then you multiply it by 20, right? You'll get around maybe 30 to 40 words. So I would say that for each answer, you should aim like somewhere less than 50 words. It's not to say that you can't give a longer answer. Just be careful, because if you give such a long answer that you lose fluency, it's not a good answer. So you don't need to give a super long answer, but you should target around 50 words or 20 seconds. All right. I don't count how many words are spoken. 3 to 4 sentences are probably okay. Yeah, but if we're going off of definition, a sentence is like super vague. You can have a sentence with like 3 words. I love you, right? And you can also have a sentence with like 20 words. I think that this sentence is very long because it was made to be longer than average. See, a sentence can be super long depending on how you define a sentence. So I would say the best measurement would be to go off of time, right? So 20 seconds. Do you teach part 2? Maybe, if we have time. All right. Does fluency go with speed? That's an interesting question. I don't think it does. You can still be fluent, but not talk too fast. But at the same time, if you talk too slowly, then you don't have a lot of fluency, if that makes sense. Okay, I read a book saying that longer is better. There are many different opinions. I think longer is better if you can control your fluency. So, for example, if you give a very long answer and you can maintain your rate of speech, you can avoid certain phrases like like I just did, right? Filler words. If you can avoid filler words, if you don't hesitate, if you give a long answer like that, it's a good answer. But for most people, when they give a long answer, their fluency diminishes. And as it turns out, they lose marks because of that. All right. So hopefully that makes sense. Okay, back to the question. So we just did the no answer. I want to hear from the yes camp. Okay, so for people thinking that emails will become more popular, right? Why do you think that? What's the reason? Okay, what's the reason? What is the criteria for speaking part 8? Part 8? There's 3 parts, bro. How to avoid using the same word of lexical resource? I mean, I think you're asking me how you can avoid repeating words. The simplest answer is that you don't need to worry about that because there are so many different things in speaking that you need to control at the same time. So focusing on your vocabulary only is kinda You should probably not do that. Formality. What do you mean formality? Give a bit more detail. Saving time. Okay. So rather than making calls, you send emails and it saves time. Is that what you mean? It's useful, it's easy. You should focus on your fluency. The main goal of speaking should be to make sure that the listener can understand what you're trying to say. Okay, so Avocadovit says this is a form of communication, right, that requires professionalism and formality. I still don't understand why it would make it more popular. Email is used by many academic groups and teams. Again, I agree, but why does that mean that it will become more popular? You need to explain it a little bit more. Huang says, after part 2, they didn't ask any follow-up questions. It depends. Doesn't actually say anything. Using emails but once, actually sending it is AI. More safely. What do you mean more safely? Professional platform, information security. Could you add some idiomatic language? I think saying something like get in touch with someone is idiomatic language, right? So, like one idiomatic item is good enough for one answer, right? You don't need to go to the post office. Yeah, but at the same time, can't you just send a message to them? It's reliable, okay, protect information. So you're saying that social media platforms, they look at your messages and then they spy on you? Is that what you're trying to say? More formal than using social media. All right. So this is where I disagree with you, right? Because I also agree that it's formal, but I also think that people, or the way in which we communicate, is becoming much less formal than before. So I would say that it's becoming less popular, but it's whatever. Usually the examiner doesn't really care about what you say, right? And they don't care whether you agree or not. They just care about how you express your ideas. Okay, so I'm guessing the main idea here is that you're trying to say that more people will hold professional jobs, right? So jobs that require professionalism. I think that's the main idea you're trying to say here. And because of this, because email is the most formal way to, let's say, most formal way to communicate with someone. I said a Vietnamese word. I'm so sorry. Please don't hate me. I tried my best. It's just a habit. I apologize. So, the most formal way to communicate with, let's say, coworkers and in an academic setting, something like this. Okay. So yeah, that's the idea. So let's craft the answer. Let's say, I think that doing so will actually become. So you can use the word actually here because the original question says, do you think it will be more? Oh, actually, no, I made a mistake. It's not will be less popular. It's more or less. So actually, you don't need to use actually. All right. So I think that doing so will become more popular because more people will hold professional jobs in the future, and email is the most formal way to get in touch. Let's just use that word again. I like repeating words, especially in different answers, so that you'll remember these words better. To get in touch with coworkers and people in an academic setting. All right. Oop, no S. I think this is better because of its versatile usage, such as in both classroom and official settings. I think that makes sense, but again, we're talking about the future, and it is my personal opinion that it'll become less popular, but it's okay. You don't need to agree with me. You can say whatever you want. But yeah, this will be the main answer. So 38 words is okay. Right? You don't need to have a super long answer for every single question, right? Please don't call me sir. Call me Khoa. I have it right there. Come on. Fellas, what are we doing? I had a bad performance on 20. All right. I need to practice more. Well, I wish you luck. Hopefully you can practice a bit more. So this is an answer that I would give. So you can practice saying this while we are thinking about other things, I guess. So yeah, just practice going over these answers. I think that doing so will become more popular because more people will hold professional jobs in the future. And email is the most formal way to get in touch with coworkers and people in an academic setting. All right. Maybe you can add a little bit something at the end, something like, hence their increase in prevalence, just to summarize your idea, which is that when people have more professional jobs, they need something with more formality. And so there will be an increase in prevalence. And there here is referring to emails, right? Let's just repeat that so it's clear what we're talking about. Could you teach us how to use yet in the middle of a sentence? I can, yet I won't. There you go. You use it like but. How to use hence? Well, hence here, I'm using it sort of like a preposition. Sort of. It's not really a preposition. But hence something happens, basically. Right. So here I'm just using hence plus a noun. Okay? Should I use famous instead of popular? Well, if you used famous instead of popular, that's a mistake, because famous usually is used to refer to a location or to a person, and it's to say that they are very well known and also that they're well liked. Well, not necessarily well liked, but I think the main part is that famous usually refers to a person or a place, whereas popular can refer to anything, right? Viral equals popular. Not necessarily. You can be popular without being viral. So viral comes from the word virus, right? So if you imagine like a virus spreading throughout a population, going viral means a video gets spread around a population of internet users. So viral just means, it's a good video. A lot of people have seen it. Will we practice writing today? You won't, but I will, because I've been writing so much. Trendy equals viral. Not necessarily, but it usually is used interchangeably. All right. Difference between common and popular. Common means it's common. Popular means it's common and people like it. Okay. Virus. What do you mean virus? That's 2 R's. What's that supposed to mean? I don't know what that is. All right, let's move on to another question. Come on, we've been stuck on the same question for like half an hour. We've been on the same question for half an hour. Come on. Let's move on. All right, question number 2. Is sending emails popular in your country? Okay, so what do you guys think? What do you guys think? Is sending emails popular? We just talked about whether it will become more or less popular, but let's talk about like currently. Is sending emails popular? Famous drama. Do I look like someone who gets involved in drama? I do not. I am just a happy-go-lucky guy. The economy develops, making business activities more dynamic, thus explaining the popularity of emails as they are more professional tools to communicate. It's the norm in office settings. We only use English in this class. We only use English in this class today. All right. Definitely, especially since the pandemic, because we have to work remotely. All right. So again, this is something that you guys have a very different opinion on compared to me, because I don't use emails. Every single thing that I need to communicate with my coworkers, we just message each other on Zello. No emails required. Okay. But I think we can say it is popular, right? Because this is one of the main ways that especially companies will use emails to get in touch with their consumers, their customers, right? So I think it's really popular in that regard. Zalo. Yes, that's how you pronounce it, is it not? How else would you pronounce that? Z-A-L-O. Zalo. Come on. This practice is really ubiquitous in my country thanks to its convenience. That's a good way of saying it. Z-A-L-O. I don't know, man. However you say it in Vietnamese, you can say it the same way in English. All right? Can we say it used to be popular until apps like Zello and Messenger arrived? So that's exactly my opinion. Okay? Well, I think this phenomenon is dependent. It's dependent, okay? Dependent on the purpose of each individual. Yes, but they're asking about in your country in general, in which case I do think that it's quite popular. Right? You just broke TikTok's rule about saying that word. When I say ZALO, it's not a violation, okay? It's a completely different thing. It's actually the name of my dog, okay? My dog is called ZALO, okay? So it's not mentioning another platform, ZALO, okay? All right. Anyway, going back to, I think you can also answer this question either with a yes or a no, but the important thing is that you have a direct answer. So, for example, if you were to answer yes, you would probably say something along the lines of, well, I think that this form of communication, right? So instead of like trying to find a synonym for emails, you can generalize emails into a form of communication, right? And you can say something like, this form of communication is very, or is widely used, let's say, right, is widely used in my country because it's such a convenient and easy way to, again, we can use the word get in touch with others, and then you can repeat whatever we said before, especially in, let's say, office or official and academic contexts. All right. Yeah, so for business-related purposes as well. This practice, I guess you can say this practice, but I don't know, I wouldn't. Do you have offline classes? We do at IELTS 1984, somewhere down there. Way down there. I think it will be popular in academic and professional environments. That's a different word that you can use here. Instead of context, you can use environments. That's a great word to use. Is paraphrasing questions an absolute must? No, nothing is an absolute must in speaking. You can say whatever you want, just don't say the wrong thing. And the wrong thing meaning like wrong grammar, wrong vocabulary, wrong word choice, basically. Toonie says, I think in my country, it depends on the settings. Like the workplace, for instance, if I work in a company, I think sending emails is a good way to communicate. I think that's a good answer, but remember, the question isn't about whether you think it's a good way to communicate or not. The question is about whether it's popular, right? So if you're answering this question, you should focus on whether it's popular or not. And to do so, you need to mention the fact that it is or is not widely used. All right. Yeah, and Bao says people tend to prioritize other tools. Yeah, other tools works here, which is much more common and convenient in daily life. Okay. I think that makes sense. Whether this June YouPass will have speaking courses. Hopefully. We hope so. It's in, 2 months? So it's okay to repeat the words used in the question. So many people tell me to avoid that. It's not inherently wrong. It's just better not to do so, right? If you repeat the words, you're not gonna get like a 5 or something like that. You can still get a 6, and if you repeat too many words, then maybe not a 7, but you can still get a 6, and 6 is good, right? The average in Vietnam is still 6, so, it's fine. How often do you go live on TikTok? It's down there. 10:30 p.m. on Monday, Tuesdays, and Fridays. There you go. All right. So if you're answering no here, you can also say something similar. You can say, I don't think that it is as popular as it was, because we're talking about the fact that emails are not popular anymore because of like social media, right? So I don't think that it is as popular as it was, meaning that currently it's less popular than before, because people today tend to, you can use the word tend to when you're describing something that people generally do. So it's something that people do a lot, right? So people today tend to prefer other options. This is another word you can use for alternatives. It's an alternative for alternatives. Okay? Right? So tend to prefer other options, such as using platforms. You can use the word platforms to describe places like FB and ZALO. Right? So, suggest using platforms such as... Oh, there. No two such as's in a row, right? That doesn't make sense. Like this one. And this one. In order to communicate with others. And then you can say something like, even in formal settings. Okay. Tend to, prove to. Is that the same thing? It's not really the same thing. If something proves to be, I think it means that it's becoming like that. So, for example, if, let's say, you didn't know whether you should have attended this lesson or not, and then suddenly you realize that, oh wow, you're actually learning a lot, then you can say something like, wow, this lesson has proven to be, or it's proving to be quite good, right? Oh, prone to. Okay, that's a different thing. Prone to, not really, because prone to means that you are more susceptible to something. Usually we use it in a negative context. So something like, people who travel a lot are more prone to viral infections or something like that, right? To give an example. Writing like this is your way of practicing speaking. Kinda, not really. All right. Anyway, that's this question. Let's move on to the third one. All right. So when would you send emails to others? Okay, again, we're still talking about emails. Or actually, you know what? Tell you what. Let's get a different topic. I think you can answer this question basically the same way that you did these two questions, right? You can say something like, yeah, I usually use emails because it's a convenient way and I use it in official and academic contexts. So it's more or less the same thing, right? So let me get a different topic so we can learn some more vocabulary. What topics would you like to see? I'm thinking advertisements. What do you think about advertisements? Should we do advertisements? Okay, advertisements. Let's go crazy with it. Yeah, go crazy. Go wild. Yes, queen. Celebrities. All right, we'll do like some questions about advertisements and then we can look at celebrities in a bit. All right, let's see if there are any overlaps. So what kind of advertisements do you like? So, let's just get rid of this first one. Let's do you like advertisements? And yeah, let's do this. Let's do this one. So, do you like advertisements? Okay, let me know. Yes or no. Do you guys like advertisements? Slay. Who does? I do. If it's one of mine. All right, so a lot of no's. Okay, so right now I would like to advertise my channel. If you've enjoyed the stream so far, please press follow, press subscribe, join the channel. Most of the time. Okay, we make an exception for YouPass advertisements, okay? Yes, no, not given. Okay, so if you're really sure about something, like if it's like a hard no, you can use the word like absolutely not. Remember, it's absolutely not absolutely no. Okay? So you can say absolutely not. I hate advertisements. Okay, now think about why. Give me some reasons. Why do you personally not enjoy advertisements? Okay, Avocado says ads interrupt my YouTube videos. Partly agree. Okay, yeah, it interrupts my feeling. My feeling is a bit weird here. I think you should say it interrupts my enjoyment of something, right? So interrupts my enjoyment of something. You're not gonna catch me sitting through. It's not even the name of the center. Why is it IELTS 1987? It's 84, bro. Come on. Mostly not. Mostly not is fine, but we're talking about things that we are absolutely sure that we hate. All right. Yeah, I have YouTube. I have YouTube Premium, so I'm not biased. Yeah, frustration, it ruins my mood, right? You can say it ruins my mood. You can say you get frustrated. Not frustration. You should use an adjective here. Like, get frustrated. Totally unbiased. Yeah, it's a waste of time. That's a good word to use here. Okay. Someone says, Siok Bin says are intrusively placed in my music playlist and disrupts my experience. That's another good word to use here. You can say disrupt something. So what's the difference between interrupt and disrupt? I think there's barely any difference, right? So I think it's basically the same thing here. So you can say it disrupts my experience, right? Over the top advertising. So I think by over the top, you mean advertisements that exaggerate, right? The product's quality, right? I think it's what you're trying to say. All right. Include some controversial images or themes. Okay, that's a decent idea. Although I don't think that most advertisements have controversial images. Sit through them or sit through the ads because there are no ways to skip them. You can pay money, okay? Everything can be resolved if you pay a little money. Nonsense. All right, nonsense advertisements. All right. So just random adverts, basically. Do keep in mind that when we're talking about advertisements and you use words like adverts or ads, these are just shortened versions of advertisements. So you can use them in speaking, but you shouldn't use them in writing because, like I said, it's just a shortened version of advertisements. And usually in academic writing, you shouldn't use the shortened version. Some of them are scams. Yeah, that makes sense. Some advertisements are scams. So a lot of different reasons why we hate advertisements, right? So you can say something like, absolutely not. I hate advertisements for many different reasons. All right? And then to create a bit more coherence in your answer, you can use words like the first one is that. And this is just the signal that you're going to be giving the first reason. It's basically the same as saying firstly, but instead of saying such a common word like firstly, you're just substituting it with something that's a bit more advanced. If you don't remember the phrase, the first one is that, you can just use firstly. It's the same thing. All right? So let's say the first one is that, or the main one is that, it interrupts or they interrupt my enjoyment. Right. And here we can actually get two ideas into the same answer by giving an example. So after saying they interrupt my enjoyment of, let's say, whatever of what I was watching or listening to. And then you can give an example here. So the easiest way to give an example is just saying, for example, right? And I remember someone saying something like they're placed in the middle of your playlists. So we can give an example like that. When I'm listening to my favorite playlist, there will be an advertisement, right? There will be an advertisement or an ad, let's say. And then we can say something like in the middle of it. So in the middle of something means that it's between two songs, for example. So in the middle of it, and it here refers to the playlist. Okay. I see ads as minor conveniences. I think you mean minor inconveniences, right? I think that's what you meant. Minor inconveniences. All right. So we can continue with this. So which disrupts my experience. All right. Why is it the past tense? Oh, so you're asking about this part. I was watching or listening to. Because when something interrupts something else, the thing that you were doing, the thing that you were doing stops. So it happened in the past, therefore past tense. And I always want to skip it as soon as I can. That's a good way of phrasing it. Right. I used to wait a 2-minute ad, then another ad that had the exact same length. Right. What is the difference between advertising and advertisement? One is a gerund and one is a noun. That's it. How do you generate ideas? So these are all your ideas, man. All right. So if you want to give another reason, you can say another reason is that, and you can keep going. But I think that this is a long enough answer So instead of saying the first one, maybe we should say something like the main one, right? Because when you say the first one is, you sort of have to give another one because the listener is expecting you to give at least two. So saying the main one here makes more sense. All right? So yeah, if you're just going to be giving one, then say the main one. But if you want to give two, you can say the first one and then another reason is something. Okay, but yeah, here are a bunch of ideas if you want to include that in your own answer. All right, does that make sense? Are we all okay with this answer? Just drop by. Is it part 3? No, this is part 1. Part 3 questions are usually much more difficult. They're probably going to ask about something about the economy. All right. All right, you want me to give a sample? All right. So I'm going to be pretending like I'm an examiner. So do you like advertisements? I'm kidding. That's not how they would sound. Absolutely not. I hate advertisements for many different reasons. The main one is that they interrupt my enjoyment of what I was watching or listening to. For example, when I'm listening to my favorite playlist, there will be an ad in the middle of it, which disrupts my experience. There you go. And that's when I go nonverbal. Part 3. Can you do part 2, please? Dang, okay. So a lot of people want part 2. Okay, do you guys want to move on to part 2, or should we do another part 1? What do you guys think? Part 2 or continue with part 1? It's up to you. I'm fine with whatever. Another part 1, part 2, part 2, part 2, part 1. Part 1, part 2, please. Another part 1. Okay, so we'll do one more part 1 question, and then we'll move on to part 2. Okay? How long is your live stream? 10 more minutes. Okay, we'll do one more part 1, and then we'll move on to part 2. Sound good? Sounds good. All right, 2 and 3. Probably not 3 today. Fair enough. Okay. So let's do one that's a bit more difficult. So let's do this one. Is there an advertisement that made an impression on you when you were a child? Okay, so these questions are really hard to answer because a lot of people just assume that you have to give an actual advertisement. Okay, and what I mean by this is a lot of people just think that, oh, you have to comb through your memory to try to think of an advertisement that you once saw and that advertisement had a huge impact on you. That's not really what you need to do here. The biggest thing to remember about speaking is that they're testing your ability to speak, not to answer questions. All right? And what that means is, if there's not an advertisement that made an impact on you, you should say so. You should say, there has never been an advertisement that has made an impression on me. Okay? If there has been, then that's good. You can give that example, but if you don't, that's completely fine. Just say that you don't. Okay? Ensure milk. I have never seen that. All right. Milkita. What is that? I have no idea what any of these advertisements are. Someone asks, Monday is for speaking, Wednesday is for whatever I feel like, and Friday is for whatever I feel like. If you want to know in advance, then I'll post an announcement on the Zeplao group. Chocolate. Baby shark. Okay, so obviously you guys have watched way more advertisements than I have. Mostly because I have a very bad memory. I don't really remember any advertisements, but okay. So something about milk. How to join Zeplao. If you go to, where's the link? If you go to YouPass, it's somewhere down there. Yeah. You have a link. Pawnee sausage. Okay, so if you have let's say you have an advertisement that has made an impact on you, right? Or not impact, but an impression on you, then you can give an example. So, for example, you should, of course, give a direct answer. And you should clearly say what this advertisement is for. Because if you go directly into your example and you just start talking about the advertisement, the listener is going to be confused because they won't understand what you're talking about, right? So, for example, you should say something like, I remember this one advertisement. And to say an advertisement for a product, you use the preposition for, right? So this one preposition for ensure milk. Or if you want to be a bit more specific, you can say something like for a milk brand called Ensure, because the examiner might think that Ensure is not a brand. They might think that it's a verb and you're saying Ensure milk, which might cause some confusion. So it's better to be clear here and say for a milk brand called Ensure, right? So what can you do next? Well, you can describe it a little bit here, right? And if you're talking about something in the past, especially a thing that you need to remember, you can use the word if I remember or if I recall correctly, something like this, right? If I recall correctly, and then you can go on with your example. This is basically a linking device to say that you're going to be talking about something from memory, right? So if I recall correctly, it used, again, I don't know what advertisements you're talking about, okay? If my memory serves me right is another phrase that's good. If my memory serves me right. The only problem with this is that it's a bit too long. So by the time that you get this out, it might be that you forget your original idea. Right. So anyway, if I recall correctly, it used cartoons to promote the product. And this left a really big impression on me because I thought that, right, the characters were super cute. Something like this. Okay, for other reasons, you can say that it had a catchy tune, right? So, for example, if you say, if there's like a song or a tune, a jingle, the most correct phrase here is actually a jingle. So you probably know this word from something like a jingle bells, right? But jingle can also mean like a short tune, usually used in advertisements to, get stuck in someone's head, and then they'll remember the phrase, they'll remember the tune. And it's a way of marketing, right? It's a method of marketing. So it had a catchy jingle. You can say it had a good message, right? Or the advertisement was hilarious. You can say this too if they had good jokes or something like that. Right. So yeah, use cartoon characters to be attractive to children. I think that makes sense. Yeah, a catchy message. So you can call that a catchy, I think you can call it a slogan as well. What is the perfect length for answers in part 1? I think the perfect length is whatever you can achieve. So, for example, if you're short on ideas, if you have only one idea, then you don't need to force yourself to think of more ideas, because that would just lead to your fluency diminishing, right? Hilarious and harmonious. So hilarious means funny, right? Hilarious means funny. Harmonious, if you're talking about this word, it means you get along well with someone else. Okay, so Trammy asks if I don't remember any ads, so what should I say? That's what I was talking about. If you don't have an advertisement that's made an impression on you, you should just say that. So, for example, I would answer something like this. Actually, there has never been an advertisement that has made an impression on me, because I think that this form of marketing is super annoying. So whenever an ad plays, I go do something else until the show or program I was watching comes back on. Okay, so this is what I would say if I didn't have an advertisement that made an impact on me, an impression on me. So a direct answer saying that there has never been one, and then I would give a reason saying like, oh yeah, this form of marketing, right, is super annoying. And so whenever an ad plays, so you can use the word play to describe when an ad starts, right? And then I'll say something like, I missed the will here. I will go do something else, right? And then I'll say the show or program I was watching comes back on. So for something to come back on, it means like they turned off the show, they turned off the program to play the ad. And when it comes back on, it means the ad has stopped. I never watched you before. This is the first time. It's very easy to understand. You're welcome. I hope you learned something new. Yeah, so you can use this form of something to paraphrase, basically. Do you usually use idioms in your speech? Not usually, because it feels forced, right? So imagine that you're just talking normally, and then suddenly I say something like, wow, it's raining cats and dogs outside. It would sound super random, right? Which is not good. But anyway, okay, so that's the part 1 question done. So yeah, that's the part 1 question. So as promised, now let's take a look at a part 2 question. So let me just get one. I'm just going on the internet to find them. Okay, let me find a good part 2 topic. Okay, do you guys want an easy topic or a hard topic? Only colloquial language. Yeah, usually I only use phrasal verbs. Hard one. Why do you want to torture me? Why do you want to torture me, okay? Hard one, a daunting one. Why do you guys hate me? But okay. So, what do you think is hard? Easy, but with strategies. What do you think is hard? How do you define hard? Something about history. A lot of people want history. Okay. So let me find something about history then. How goes history? History. Let me find something about history. Actually, let me just Google it. History IELTS speaking part 2. Oh, I'm going to steal this from IDP. They won't mind. I'm sure they won't. If you guys have a topic you would like me to do, then you can post it in the comments. Otherwise, I'm just gonna look for one. I found one. Okay. I have found one. Alright, so this is, I think, a very hard topic. Right? So describe a historical period that you would like to learn about. You should say when this period was, what it was famous for, and why you're interested in this area. Okay, is this hard enough? I see, I cry. Hiya. Sure. Okay. Honestly, this is a very easy topic to answer. Okay, it's a very easy topic. I'll show you. Okay? Very easy. Trust me. Okay? The biggest mistake is that a lot of people think that you can only talk about the historical period. Right? But in reality, you don't need to just talk about the historical period. The thing that you should focus on is the why. Okay? You should focus on why you want to learn about this historical period. And the reason for this is that you don't actually need to talk about that historical period. You can focus on different things. So, for example, let's say the historical period that I want to learn about is the Vietnam War. Okay? This was somewhere between 1945 to 1975, right? Okay, don't quote me on this. I don't remember. Okay, but let's say the Vietnam War. All right? 1954. Okay, my bad. 1954 to 1975. Okay. So, I don't actually need to talk about this period at all. I just need to talk about a reason why I want to learn about this period. What if I can't remember a clear period? Just take mine. Just take my idea and then just, use it. Okay? We're going to be focusing on reason why I want to learn about this period. Okay? And how will I explain this? if you live in Ho Chi Minh City, you would know that we have a very famous landmark. Okay? Which is the Independence Palace. Okay. So, how can we use this and how can we link it to this topic? It's very simple. You're gonna say, I went on a trip to the Independence Palace. And then I saw many historical relics. Hold on. I need to prove that I'm not an AI. Okay. Saw many historical relics, which made me interested. And that's the period I want to learn more about. Okay? So, for example, if we split, and this is how I usually split up my my samples, I'll have an introduction. I'll have some descriptions. This is the main description, and then I'll give my feelings about it. Okay, so in the introduction, I'll focus on the when and why I visited the Independence Palace. Right? That's the main part of my introduction. I'm gonna explain, right? This was during my first year at university. Okay? And we had to visit it because it was mandatory. It was a mandatory field trip, right? All the students in my university had to go there, right? And so I went with my classmates. Okay. In this description part, I'll give some brief description about what can be found inside this building. And I'll be focusing on art, I'll be focusing on relics, and let's just say the overall design of the Independence Palace. Okay? And from this idea, I will link it, all right, to I was interested in the historical period. And so I'll just say, I want to learn more. And then I'll finish it off by saying, or by talking about my future plans. In particular, I'm going to be talking about how can I learn about it. Okay? So these are the ideas that I'm going to use. And notice I didn't use any of the ideas that they suggested. Okay? Because you don't actually need to talk about any of this. It says you should say, I don't know why the about is here, but you don't need to say them. It's just there as suggestions. So you only need to talk about what you want to talk about, right? So these are some of the ideas that I'm going to be using. If the examiner doesn't know about Vietnam War, is it okay? It's probably okay. It's a pretty famous event, so, or an infamous event, you should say. So they probably know about it. Can you do a sample? Of course. It's not like I'm going to give you a bunch of ideas and then not do the sample. I'm just getting my phone out so we can time and see how long I can talk for. Okay? So let's set a timer for 2 minutes. Okay, and then I'll try talking. All right, so I guess we can start. You guys have subtitles, right? Or should I type as I go? No, I think we shouldn't type. All right, so listen carefully, okay? All right, so 2 minutes starts right now. So today I would like to talk about a historical period that I would like to learn more about. Now, first, I want to talk about why I want to learn about this period, which is the Vietnam War, which took place between 1954 and 1975. So a few years ago when I was still in university, and in particular when I was in my first year of university, my school had every single student take a mandatory field trip to the Independence Palace, which is a very famous landmark in my city. And since it was a mandatory field trip for my school, I went with my classmates to this place. And actually, I had been there a few times before in the past, but I never went inside because I didn't have a reason to do so. So, in terms of what this building is, it's basically a museum, and they keep art, relics, and just other things from the past. And in particular, they have a lot of relics around the time of the Vietnam War. And since it's called a palace, it has a very luxurious design inside. So it was basically an official building for officials during that time. And it was also the residence of the president of the country at the time. But nowadays, like I said, it's used mostly to house art and relics. And when I was going through this museum, right, of all these different relics, I found it really interesting, especially some of the documents and especially some of the paintings and art and pictures that were taken during this time. And it was so interesting to me because I never thought that my country's history could be so fascinating. And so after the trip, I really wanted to learn more about this time period. So I think that for now and in the future, I'm going to go onto YouTube to look at more videos that talk about this time period so I can learn more about it and tell my friends about it. I hope. Okay, so easy. Like I said, easy. Super easy. No problem at all. Okay. Rồi, so yeah. Mình vẫn nói được về cái topic là đây là cái period mà mình muốn học, đúng không? Nhưng mà các bạn không có cần tiếng Anh nói tiếng Việt rồi ta. Okay, so we finished the entire talk. We were talking about the historical period, but we didn't really need to talk about it that much. We mostly talked about the Independence Palace, right? And yeah, it was just going from there. And then we link it to the fact that we want to learn more about it. So if you want to use this in your own speaking, you don't need to talk about the Independence Palace. You can just talk about any museum that you've been to, right? You talk about a museum and then you say something like, oh, I went to that museum, I saw X, Y, and Z, and that really motivated me to learn more about this historical period. Okay? Does that make sense? I think that makes sense. I'm sure that you have a time counter in your brain. No, it's just muscle memory. Okay. So yeah, that's about it. I'm going to send this file into the Zeplao group. So if you're not in there, you should join. Yeah, there's a link down there, youpass.vn, right? Go there. It will have a link to the ZALO group. Okay, super cool, but I mostly don't understand what you said. That's my life in a nutshell. The link is broken. Well, you can't really click on it, but okay. Well, you can try again tomorrow when the link works again, I guess. Where's the link? It's not a link. You have to type it in. So you go to. Okay, let me just go onto YouPass. Then I'll show you where to click. All right. So I think it's whoops. All right, that's not where I want to be. Let's cover that up. Where is the thing? Ah, there it is. Okay, let me shrink myself down. Okay, so look right here. It's on the top right. Once you go to youpass.vn, it's like this link right here. Whoops, that's not how you do that. Let me go back into here. Okay, this link right there. Press on group luyện writing. It's that one. Got it? Got it. Okay. So yeah, I think that's about all for today. I'm all tuckered out. I'm all tired. And so I need to go rest. But hopefully you enjoyed the stream. We'll probably be doing more speaking in the future. Finally, what we need is fluency. I mean, fluency outweighs content. I would say so. Okay, good night, everyone. Hopefully you enjoyed the stream. If you did, press follow, press subscribe, press whatever buttons on the screen. All right, and I'll catch you all on Wednesday. Same time, same channel. Bye. Bye, 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 bye.